Yeah. Can we do that?
Hello. Okay, welcome to the City Council Workshop for October 17th, 2022. First on the agenda, we have a review of our CIP and opera financial updating with Jill Eastman, Brian Wood, and Rita Beaudre. I'll turn it over to Brian, you, and you have the floor.
Mayor, we're actually going to change it up a little bit. We got a little technical difficulty with that thumb drive. So Glenn's going to go first, and he's going to talk about the Auburn Neighborhood Curb Appeal Grant Program.
Very good. So this is part D,
Yes, sir.
subsection D of A. Programming. I'm sorry. Oh.
I like standing. At the last council meeting, the mayor put forward a proposal to create a facade grant. Staff discussed it. We changed the name to the Auburn Neighborhood Curb Appeal Grant simply because the word facade tends to ring true with businesses, and the city used to have a facade grant program. So we didn't want to confuse people, so we felt this would be better. We looked at it, and on the back page, you'll see, we went out and took some photos of some existing buildings. We did look at 4-unit and larger buildings because we felt at that time that having this program have effect on some of our larger buildings might be more effective. And with costs and contractors and trying to coordinate things, that larger projects might be easier to do than some of the smaller projects. But if you look through it, the purpose of this obviously is to increase the curb appeal of the buildings we have on some of our major thoroughfares to start with, focusing in the downtown district. And as far as eligibility, we had created it for 4 units or greater in the downtown area. Projects could not have started before we actually start the grant program, and applicants who had 50% or larger matching funds would have higher priority than others. And this would be to do exterior improvements and exterior maintenance, scrape, paint, siding, windows, porches, things like that, things that really do attract your eye when you drive by and see what condition the buildings can be in. So the pictures are not representative of what we think we would be doing necessarily, but to give you an idea of what we looked at and saw, and make sure that this is the type of work that you're thinking of when we put this grant program together. I mean, if you look at one of them, number 4, that is almost more landscaping that's needed than anything else. It still could use some other things. The porches were in not great shape, but just want some input on that as we start to finalize this process before we bring it to council for decision. So there's also a budget there that provided the $200,000 in the opera funding that was recommended, and how that would be kind of spent and where the money would go. So beyond that, I would look to entertain questions or recommendations.
And just to refresh everybody's mind, when I proposed this last meeting, first of all, great work. I mean, extremely quick turnaround time. I commend you and staff for actually taking a skeleton proposal and putting some meat and bones onto it, right? I will, and this is again up to the council. This is only something to spur conversation that I proposed. Obviously, it's your final decision. But the intent was to be able to provide really a substantial impact to owner-occupied units between 1 and 4 units. I do not disagree with Glenn on this. Some of these properties in here are probably our worst looking and performing properties in the entire city, without a doubt. But the concept that I at least had when I started talking with some counselors about this was, how do we get, let's say it's Mary Jane's living in a 3-unit owner-occupied. Okay, she needs some of the same work done in her exterior of her building, roof, windows, landscaping, porch, emergency exits, and so forth. Can we do $5,000 per unit? Still a 50% grant. So if it's $30,000, we're subsidizing $15,000 in that example. Okay, if it's Fred, who lives in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath bungalow over on 3rd Street, and he's a senior and he can't afford the proper maintenance, how can we get him $5,000 to offset the $10,000 that's going to be needed to get his property up? So thinking at $200,000 could effectively help 40 units throughout the entire city at $5,000 per unit, 50% match. Now, there's obviously some staffing, and logistics and so forth, and I don't want to take away from the 4+, but I just want you to think about, at least when I propose, what the intent was. Again, it's up to you to add to it, or take away or change it.
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I think that is the way that I was looking at it too, that we would try to help everybody from, maybe a 2-floor apartment house to a 4 or 5, but not just going out helping the people that may have 4 rents to make money with to be able to do this, because there's a lot of people that own 1 or 2-story buildings that don't have a lot of money, and they don't have a lot of income on that house. So I think we've missed it a little bit by just saying 4 units.
I guess my thought is that 5,000 a unit, some of these houses, that's a minuscule amount of money that is really needed on the building. Some of these buildings that I know them, it's $150,000 that they need, not $30,000 or $40,000. So I think it would be better fit to the smaller 1, 2s, 3s. It might be more of an impact. That's what I'm thinking there. But some of the stuff, like a roof, is 12 to 15,000, just a roof alone. That's not even on this.
Yeah, when we looked at it, we started looking at pricing. I mean, obviously, if they were doing that, that would be great. We'd pay for other stuff. But when you start getting to a roof, all new windows, new siding, you're right, that's a $150,000 plus project. One of the things that we put in here is that you may have noticed that the 50% was people putting in 50% or more would have priority, but we had no bottom limit on what that match would be required, depending on how many people we get to apply and those things. So I'd like to probably keep something in line with that, so that if we don't get people who are willing to put in more than 50%, we'd still be able to go out there and do some work at a lower level if possible.
Yeah, looking at a regular duplex, 2-story duplex, if you wanted to repaint that, including, scrape, prep, and so forth, just based upon my own recent experience, you're looking at around $12,000 to $15,000. Which, hey, if it's a 2-unit and that's potentially up to $10,000, that makes it more affordable. That was the initial thought. Okay, how can someone on a fixed income go out there and do a HELOC or a home equity line of credit for $7,000 and have the other $7,000 paid for through this grant? We get 2 nice units. It's beautifying the neighborhood, and it's less of a financial impact.
Seems like the type of thing that the city might have done in the past. Have these types of programs happened before, and what kind of amounts and what kind of applications are we getting? I hope we use all of this money, but I'm just wondering, is that likely?
So looking back at the previous rehab program that the city had, which was more interior than exterior, but was some exterior portions to that, those jobs ranged anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000. But again, those were below 80% of median income, and they were putting in, if it was an apartment building, there was a requirement for the owner to put some match into it, up to, I think it was 25%. But if it was a single-family home, there was really no match.
This is the type of program that I would advocate strongly if there's a huge demand for it, that we actually give more money to it. So let's start with this. But I think if you're seeing a lot of applicants, come back to us and say, look, we need this much more, and I'd be up for that.
There was a city employee back in the 80s who didn't paint his house because he thought it would go up in assessed value. And, I don't know where he got that idea, but you couldn't shake it out of this former city employee's head. And so I think it's good. I agree with Steve that it should be 4 units and less, just to keep it at the smaller scale, not the more commercial units. But I think it's great, and I think, if it goes well, expand it if we have the resources.
Owner occupied, or does that matter?
Maybe preference. I would hesitate to say just for owner occupied, because I've run programs where we had trouble getting applicants. So you don't want to be in that position, but you could do a preference. And then if you see that you're getting all kinds of owner occupied then they can mostly get it. If you're not, then you can still use the money.
And I'd add, I do think there's a huge need for us to figure out what we're gonna do about some of these big, ugly, poorly taken care of buildings in
I
our
think that's being
downtown.
discussed later today, right? I think it's on the agenda later. So what I'm hearing is a 1 to 4 units, preference on a higher match, preference on owner occupied.
And I would probably add, there's 2 other little things. One was in here, you had a reimbursement of up to 50%. So in other words, if let's say the bill is $10,000, they had to pay all $10,000 and then 50% of that would be reimbursed back to them. If we can modify that slightly, because I think that is a challenge, especially in owner occupied, seniors or fixed income, going to the bank and pulling out a HELOC for $10,000, knowing that, you know, they're going to get 50% back is still a pretty good stretch.
Right.
So if we can eliminate some of that and turn it into some other type of, whether it be a forgivable loan or, you know, upon proof that 50% is paid, however that works out, I think would be, again, taking away hurdles. And so that's one. And I think the second one, looking at this as everybody's talking, and we've always talked about this for years, one of the biggest hurdles to taking advantage of what we have for programs is just the lack of knowledge of the programs. So I think this might be an interesting test case, if ARPA would allow it, to, you know, apply $2,500 to $4,000 in marketing for this program. And I'm not sure, communications, information, something to that effect, whether that's a direct mail piece to targeted homeowners, mass citywide, part of the citywide newsletter that the city manager sends out periodically, Sun Journal, whatever the case is. I'd like to see if we can get really get people to know it's there.
So our intention is to focus this in a single area, like the downtown neighborhood, simply because to have an impact where you actually see, if we do, 10 of these across the city in all the different neighborhoods, it really would be hard to see that impact. If we focus on the downtown district, which is also qualified with a census tract for CDBG, then we can, if people do apply that are below 80% of median income, we can start pairing other funds to this. So the lead grant would come into play, we hope, to help with this as well, to expand those numbers. And yes, we've gotten much better at doing the marketing, and if Rita allows it, we'll do it, and if not, I'm sure I can find enough money to do a marketing campaign that will work.
So downtown, just in the census tracts, or really?
The downtown neighborhood census tract, which is basically here over towards Hannaford,
Okay.
that area.
Okay. And that was part of our council goals about 4 years ago, too, is to focus resources there as well.
Yeah, that's the area, Mayor, if you remember, we did the dashboard inspections.
Yep.
And I think we got great results from that. It's good data. And
We did.
now we'll take that data and we'll continue, because we can now target and reach out to those properties.
Because we have scorecards on all those homes that were actually already looked at and given a score, so we can go to the highest ones and directly mail them right up front.
And that's part of our downtown historic district, too, which kind of can lead into some further examples of rehab. Okay. Any other questions on this, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, kudos for getting this out and for listening to us. I've been off and on the council since 2000, and a lot of these programs have come and gone. A lot of people that really, really could qualify for these programs would come in and they couldn't understand, either they couldn't understand the paperwork or it was so long. Is there a way that you can kind of streamline it a little bit so everybody can understand and it's not going to take you 2 weeks to fill out the paper?
I think if you'll look at some of the programs that we've rolled out in the last 18 months to 2 years, that our applications are no more than 1 page, and we're collecting the absolute minimum information to be able to move a project forward. So this will be something that we can turn around pretty quickly. My goal, based on what I'm hearing, is we probably would have an application period. Obviously, I don't think a lot of this work's going to start until spring, but I think we can get the application process as soon as you folks approve everything, and maybe do that for 60 days, and then we can really sit down and look at what qualifies and how many we're getting, and then we can assess what we think the demand will be for money.
Kudos to your department then, if you get it streamlined to 1 page.
If it's more than 1 page, it's too long for me.
I really like that this is a reimbursement program too, so that means that the work actually has to be done before they see the money, which is, I like that.
And based on the mayor's comment, we can figure out a way to make that work as far as it'll still be reimbursable, but they may get the money before they have to take out a loan. We'll assess that on an individual basis, but if, the only other thing I would probably ask is that if we could increase that limit based on match to get to a higher number possibly. So again, $5,000 is not going to do a lot of work and in this environment. So if, it caps out at 10, but to get there, you're going to have to put some additional money in.
So like 10,000 per unit?
Yes.
Council? Any objection to that? It brings a target from 40 down to 20 theoretically.
Theoretically, but we'll
At a
have-
minimum of 20 built, which is still 20 units in that area. That's a lot. It's highly dense. Good. Okay, I think you got your answer.
Anything else?
All right, you'll see that at the next agenda. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. The one question I have is, it says completed in a timely manner. Do you have a certain construction date they have to initiate this by, and it takes 30, 60, 90 days? How is that being tracked?
So the way we historically have done that is from the day that we sign the contract with a contractor or a part of that conversation, then we set that schedule based on the work that's going to be done and how long we all feel it would make sense. And then if they don't meet that criteria, then there's issues for the contractor to pay some penalty.
Perfect, thank you. The second question I have is, I know this is an exterior part or grant or program, but a lot of these facilities also need interior work. So I hate to use this term, but are we putting, lipstick on a pig? We've all heard that before, and I just want to make sure that we're targeting areas that are livable and we're giving it to the right people who, are owner occupied and are using it to get, back up and running and looking efficient.
So one of the requirements that used to be part of the rehab program is that your building had to pass an inspection before, or the things we were doing would get it to that point. It was a chance for assessing to get inside, codes to get inside, things like that. It could be part of the program, but it does make it more difficult. Because obviously if there are things inside that would cost $20,000, $25,000, we're not going to have the money to help them, but then to say, okay, we're not going to fix anything if you don't fix that first. I guess I would hope that by having a better looking outside, they'll take more pride and put anything else they have available into fixing the inside. We could require the inspections so that at least we'd have an idea of what we're dealing with, and if it's condemnable, we wouldn't do it.
Correct. I would rather utilize our funds more efficiently, because if we give $5,000, $10,000 to a unit to be replaced, but then we walk in and the floor is falling through.
Right.
I mean, we got to be smart with the money.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So inspections, I'm all for.
Yeah, and I think on that note, you own a property in this neighborhood too. I've heard a lot for years now that people won't come to the city for anything because they're afraid of that. So they don't want the inspection because they don't want to get a $30,000 bill, and we've had a history of doing that as a city, so hence they just clam right up and don't paint their properties, don't do anything because they're afraid of whatever. So that's always been a detriment. I just want to make sure that we're careful, that we're coming in, life, and you don't want to put that lipstick on a pig, but you also don't want to walk in and have a mandate of everything because people won't allow us in anymore, and then that's worse.
Yeah, just to reinforce the mayor's comment, I owned for a little over a decade the property adjacent to number 3. And I took really good care of my property. It was owner occupied for a large period of that. But the south side of the building had a roof that was just wearing out much faster than the rest. And at the time, I believe there was a 2% loan available through the city for home improvement. And when the city representative came in for an inspection, I was well-intended, and I was glad for him to point out some things that I wanted to improve. And then I was given a laundry list of things he would have liked to see. And what I was looking for approximately a $15,000, $20,000 loan to help with the roof, it was going to be $15,000 just to get to the start of that loan money, and I gave up on the process. It was a little frustrating, and then I started rolling my quarters and started replacing the roof cash. But that was a burden on me in a 3-unit as owner-occupied, because I understand how the numbers work, and that's why I like the emphasis on owner-occupied, because even if you're owner-occupied in a 3-unit, you're not cash positive once you cover your utilities. You really have to enter kind of that 4th unit, in my experience.
You got enough to work with?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Phil, what do you want to do?
We're gonna go
Keep going
back
backwards?
to,
Okay. Community service and
we'll
outreach.
go back to A.
Oh, we're gonna go back to A.
Yes.
ARPA projects approved.
So as Brian's pulling that up, council, this is just an update on where we are. Gives you an idea of what we have left for funding. We've asked Rita to join us. Jill is also in the audience to answer any questions you might have. So we're gonna start off, I think the presentation, probably hits CIP first. But it'll be CIP and ARPA rolled in, and then we'll go from there. Apparently not.
So, good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry about the technical difficulties. As Phil mentioned, I just wanted to provide, at the request made last council meeting, for an update on CIP and ARPA projects. I have with me Rita and Jill, who are a true brain trust, and I'm just here to help this process along. So just kind of looking back, just wanted to itemize a few of the projects that we had talked about and made some funding allocations towards, and then denote a couple of other projects that I think have been of particular interest to council. These are not every single project, but the vast majority of them. So we have the HVAC hasty effort. We have started that, and that went out to bid. But obviously, as you guys know, that's been quite expensive, and so I'm trying to figure out what can be done, what we're going to be able to do for next summer, so that we can get full utilization. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the Ingersoll allocation. So for Hasty, that has been moved forward, but still trying to figure out and make sure that we're able to get this done in a timely manner. As you know, there have been some challenges with that building, and will continue to be. But this will be an effort and movable towards some repairs for that building. Festival Plaza, we allocated $95,000 to explore that. I know part of the ARPA projects that were brought forward, I believe not with this council, but with the previous council, was exploring a few of the potential designs or efforts in that area. So obviously, $95,000 is not enough when I think the range was somewhere around 1.3 to 2.2 million. But this does allow for some replacement, and obviously there's been tremendous utilization, and with the Christmas village coming, I think this is continuing to be a great gathering place for the city, and so just continuing to make the necessary investments or improvements there. A few of these major drainage are just annual efforts. Same with reclamation, resurfacing. What you're going to hear, I think we allocated, kind of jumping to FY22 and 23, respectively, $1.2 and $1.8 million for a number of those projects. Don't worry, Second Street is still on the list. Those are going to be going out to bid this winter for spring projects. Recreation and playground, the previous council allocated $1.3 million. We have or installing 2 playgrounds right now. A couple of modifications we had to make for installation. We still have approximately $500,000, and in going back and looking at the order. Part of that was towards doing something down here, downtown, whether that be a pump track or something else. I think we kind of looked at the sizing and the costs and what we would need to make that a major attraction downtown with the mayor, and are still exploring what those what that idea could be or what we might need to do. But I wanted council to know that that's what's remaining. We replaced brand new playground at Municipal Beach and also at Pettingill Park. So those are currently being installed and I think might be completed at this point. So that's something that's definitely going to see great utilization in the coming years, and certainly will be a part of the ongoing maintenance efforts of the city. Fire and air plaque replacement, those have been ordered. Obviously, with everything else, a lot of these are on an extended receivement timeline. Same for the 12-yard plow truck. We have 2 of those allocated for funding, and those have been ordered as well. Police vehicles, there's carryover from 21 to 22 and 23 in those allocations, and I believe we've ordered 3, I think 3 or 4 replacements. So that's continuing with our asset replacement schedule there. So that is an update on the last couple of years with regards to CIP. You'll also see in the next slide, we did some reallocations and then some of the investments for our quasi-governmental or intergovernmental efforts. This council allocated $50,000 to the Boys and Girls Club for a new floor. Happy to say that that is in, and I believe came in a whopping $1,800 under budget. Court Street sidewalk efforts are still underway. That's being tethered together with some other initiatives as our transportation director has briefed you guys on a few different times, but that is still moving forward. The Recreation Department truck, as you know, Recreation Department has taken on a number of different tasks and initiatives over the years, whether that's expanded services to age-friendly, whether that's the grab-and-go program. And so that truck, or that replacement rather, is also going to be, that particular truck is going to be replacing, I believe, our 1-ton that clears a parking lot down there, keeps it safe, and Pettingill Park keeps it safe and usable in the wintertime. And we actually have a driver for it this year. So PW is pretty excited about that. Intergovernmental 911 radio system, that initiative has been going on for 4 years, 5 years, for some time. We have invested a decent amount of money, about $700,000, $800,000 over a number of different funding cycles. That system that upgrade is nearing an end and is mostly completed to date. So just working with 911 to make sure that all of the appropriate transfers have been made. LATC, we just allocated $173,000 for the replacement of 2 new buses. And then, as you'll remember, the airport hangar was relatively new, and that's part of the ramp that's being redeveloped right now. So that is also moving forward. Just a little picture so you guys can see what the floor looks like in the Boys and Girls Club. So if you haven't had a chance to swing through, Yeah. Definitely, definitely take a look. Yeah. hmm Yeah. So definitely would be durable. Going to see a great deal of use, and so now we're working with them on a few spot. Yep.
I think that floor is actually a poured floor.
Oh, it's
It's
four.
poured, it's poured in there. No, it's not concrete, but it's a special epoxy.
These floors they make are pretty high-tech.
Yeah.
As opposed to those old hard rubber floors that we used to play on. Where
No, it's pretty nice. So yeah, a couple of
looks like they got a volleyball court there, and
they do, yeah, multi-purpose. There are a couple of minor leaks that we're gonna work with them on, but by and large,
great.
yeah, the kids loved it.
Volleyball, too.
Yes, yeah. So go see a
That's
couple of
great.
matches there.
that was well needed.
Very much so, very much so. So, and they're very appreciative. I wanted to relay that message. So that is it for just kind of a brief update on kind of where we are with CIP. There any other questions, or we'll move on to ARPA? All right. So just kind of going through, there have been a number of projects that have been allocated over the last, year and a half? Seems like a little longer than that. So obviously we know the success of the Efficiency Maine matching program, as you guys are voting on later on tonight for additional funding for that. The capital investment and purchasing, that has really made all of this possible, really standing up and having the team being able to support these initiatives, and as the city continues to invest in its facilities and public spaces, that's only going to continue to be an important element of the city. Dark fiber expansion. Interestingly enough, that project was something that was brought to us by our former IT director, Paul Frazier. He's no longer here, but we've been able to expend about $63,000 from the original $250,000 allocated on a number of smaller projects, one of which being providing connectivity to Festival Plaza. So during our Christmas extravaganza, our vendors will have secure access if needed to provide goods and services and be able to connect and use any number of payment methods there. Also, expansion for a camera down Pettingill Park, or I'm sorry, down in the gully. We're able to see and have visibility from the PAL Center, but don't have a camera down in the gully. And so, we have a number of nice basketball courts down there, so making sure that they remain so, and same with the futsal court. But more importantly, some of our regional partners have explored running fiber to various parts of the city, and one of them being the county. And the cost associated with running their own fiber has been exorbitant. To say it's tripled in the past 2 to 3 years would very well be an understatement. And so this project, I think, is definitely also going to bring a number of other partners that had originally thought that it was better to forego this initiative back to the table. So
Will that actually decrease our overall cost, or?
it will.
Okay.
It will. Yes, if we, yeah, it will. Tot lot, we have had a number of discussions about that. So I know that's still something that is ongoing about exactly what we're going to do out there. But there was $50,000 allocated to that. Lake Grove, we did a significant number of samples and testing over the summer, as well as identifying what opportunities are out there, whether that's kayaking or swans or paddle boats. And so I think we'll be in a in a pretty good place next year to fully maximize this great asset. And so really excited about that. Museum LA, we allocated approximately 1.3 million there. I know that they've pursued other funding sources. Had a little bit of a hiccup at certain places, but that's still there, and we'll figure out what that looks like moving into 24 and beyond. Water and sewer infrastructure is obviously pivotal to a lot of the growth and expansion, specifically out there by BJ's and a number of other developments that are moving forward. And I think we can all agree that the number of times, at least, that Jonathan has been before us, transportation initiatives and efforts are definitely being fruitful, and having his perspective and ability to bring federal dollars and state dollars to bear on projects is absolutely crucial. Employee retention, obviously, we all know the competitive nature of the market right now, so that was very much a beneficial investment. The asset management software, happy to say that that is off the ground. We both have purchased the software and are working with Public Works, and they're actually going to be on site or on premise the first week in November. This is going to be critical for all of the investments that we're continuing to make in both our hard infrastructure as well as some of our outdoor facilities or infrastructure, so our playground equipment, all of that. Really gathering and synthesizing all of that. We've been able to leverage some of our officers that are waiting to go to the academy, so to help them learn the city and learn some of the infrastructure as well. So really bringing all resources to bear to move that project along. CDBG, well, we all know the great work that they're doing in their space. Obviously, as City Hall is become a little tight. See the economic development revolving loan program is doing quite well. Same for the assessing software and permitting software. That's going to be the next two big pieces. We are the only municipality, I think there's one other, that for assessing needs are on Patriot, so upgrading that, and then permitting. Eric can speak to the challenges of Intergov, but they're extensive to say the least. We have a fantastic IT department. They are an IT department of 4, though. So each one of these are major lifts. So those two will be coming quickly. The Quint fire truck, that was a $1.6 million investment. I think, I don't want to speak too much out of turn, but Jill would venture to say that by using that money and not bonding it, that saved us probably $150,000, $200,000 in repayment, maybe. She's like, don't put me on the spot. All right. Obviously, the new PAL centers is going to be tremendous. So that coupled, the allocation that this council put forward, coupled with investment in the earmark from Senator Collins and number of things moving forward, that's going to be a fantastic project. The hot box, we can see it out there. In Lake Auburn Community Center, looking and closing on that. The barn is down. Some work to clean that up, but that's moving forward. The outbox is here. I believe the kayaks are coming in spring. Yeah, spring at some point. Nonprofit, that has all been allocated. That was $50,000, and I know that went quick, fast, and in a hurry. Small area master plans are, Jonathan is leveraging those to the hilt. Property tax relief for seniors is something that we are working through diligently. An FAQ, I believe, is going up on the website this week with applications looking to be officially launched in early November. So that's going to be a huge relief for the seniors. Obviously, ADUs. That's going to be another piece to address the housing shortage. So we'll continue to monitor that. And then moving forward, forward-looking, we have, I think, 4 different proposals that have been discussed, 3 by the mayor, and then one I want to share with you guys tonight. So just so you're aware, all of those projects that we articulated before were roughly $11.4 million of the approximately 13.5, correct? So there's still a little bit left for us to continue to make major impacts. So one thing that has been discussed, the mayor is aware, but something that I think is very much in line with a number of the efforts that the council has put forward over the years, or over this year rather, with continuing to build upon the community engagement, community opportunities to address both fun in the community, but also the kind of pragmatic and practical side of things. As Phil shared a few weeks ago, I was in a conference back in Ohio. One of the things that I really brought back that I thought was extremely beneficial for the city, and something I think that the police department has talked about in years past, are 2 different trailers that would be free of charge, that would be beneficial for all residents of Auburn. So I'll kind of walk through each one. One is kind of a pop-up block party. These are things that have been seen and used all throughout the country. You'll see them quite a bit on National Night Out with police departments all across the country. And they really are kind of everything you would need for a block party. So whether that's the barricades to close down the roads, grills, chairs, tables, cornhole, even a pop-up movie screen that's inflatable, all of those things that are really going to help kind of bring that cohesion to communities. There are a number of different ways that you can bring those forward. There's a number of different ways that you can reserve these throughout the summer and fall months, whether that's bringing a petition together with your neighbors, or whether that's through events like National Night Out. These have been hugely successful all across the country. Specifically, the city in Texas that was presenting has had the pop-up black party for 4 years and has had, I believe, 2 chairs go missing. So it's been a wildly successful program. The other thing about the pop-up black party is they purchased the trailer and then were able to work with local companies to secure donations for the wrapping of the trailer, whether that's through restaurants, and then everything inside was donated. And same thing, kind of moving on to the tool lending center. Again, that was through a partnership with Lowe's and a couple of other local companies. Everything in that trailer, from lawnmowers to shovels to rakes, were all donated. And so the municipality ended up just purchasing the trailer there as well. So both of those initiatives total would be about $50,000 if everything in them were purchased. Many municipalities, and I believe with the stand-up partners that we have throughout the city of Auburn, would be significantly less than that. One of the great things about the Tool Lending Center is that it's an opportunity for those that may not necessarily have the resources to maintain their yard or their duplex or their multifamily. But it's also really great for seniors that may not necessarily have the ability, or maybe going through something short term, where they're not able to maintain their yard, they're not able to do some of those things that they've been able to do. This allows that resource for volunteers to come forward, whether it's the Boy Scouts, whether it's a church volunteer group, to partner with a number of different individuals in the community as kind of a cleanup day. Again, the presenters that spoke out of Texas, they ended up it became so wildly successful that they now have more volunteer groups than they do projects. So it's something that, definitely has a plus side. And as we're kind of talking about, kind of curb appeal, as we're talking about opportunities to address some of the challenges in some of our neighborhoods, this is just another tool or resource that could be available for residents to avail themselves of. So that is the update for ARPA and for CIP. Are there any questions specifically about this proposal or ARPA in general? Yes.
Yeah, question on employee ARPA. This is ARPA expenditure. Hold on, I highlighted it. Premium pay, item number 11. I would have expected that to be exhausted upon distribution, but we only drew down less than 50%.
So, Mayor, some of that is going to be paid out over the course of the year. That's not all premium pay all at once. So, if you remember, we did adjust as part of our retention was part of the 40-hour work week. So that means that'll be distributed over this year.
Okay, so you're using it as a double. Okay, got it. So this is going to be retention, and it will be. That's still on track for full exhaustion of the allocation. Okay.
So throughout, so throughout looking at all of these expenditures, there's a few that haven't used all of the money, and there's a few that haven't used any. So at what point are we going to say, okay, that's it, we're going to close this project, we're going to put that money back in the pool?
Yeah, so all of them are underway, and so we'll continue monitoring, bringing those back before you. And so when they do get to that point where, okay, this one's wrapped up, there's $20,000 left, that's where we'll come back and you'll need to reallocate those funds. There's a whole reporting process that Rita has to do when we do that, but there'll be an opportunity for us to be able to do that later.
And we have until March of next year, is that?
So you have to allocate by 2024. So we have plenty of time. Expenditures have to be by 2026.
One more follow-up here, too. Could we get, and this is just a follow-up for the future, could we get a breakdown of the effectiveness of the nonprofit agency grant at $50,000 line item or project number 17? Sure. I.e., who received it and what's it been used to? Kind of let's eyeball that and see if it's actually gone to good use. If it has gone to good use and it's impacted a lot of people, the council might want to increase that or run another series or slightly different.
Sure. Rita.
Mr. Mayor,
You got to keep pushing.
there were 5 actual grants of $10,000 each. One of them was the ski squad, where they were not able to do it, so that $10,000 is going for this year's ski squad. So those types of one was for registrations for families that couldn't afford it. But I can get you on.
And we also have
Is there any questions on the pop-up block party? I think that's going to be important feedback to get to city staff on this and the Tool Lending Center too, so they can create an order for us to review. I mean, if there's consensus on running forward with this program, like anything else.
Just add that the tool lending comes into conversations from the age-friendly group over the years about some seniors that may have projects but not necessarily the equipment to do the work. So this is where we could get in contact with volunteer groups, be able to take that trailer out and actually do that work that's necessary.
Yeah, that was my only question, is just administration, because I was thinking, is this an employee sort of nightmare with all kinds of logistical and time issues? But if you can do it that way, that sounds reasonable.
Any other comments on this? I mean, I'm personally excited about this. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I heard $50,000 allocation. That's if we had zero contributions, but I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of companies that would like to contribute for both the tool lending and the pop-up party, so that's going to be significantly less.
I would imagine so, absolutely, and we're excited to potentially start soliciting those and naming those partners and letting everybody know.
Got to be great to get some awnings put in there as well. Wouldn't be nice awnings off the side of those trailers? I think would be wonderful. Okay, a little block party, you know? Yeah. Good thing we have an awning company located in our city. One of the premier awning companies in the country, actually. So if there's no, you all want to see this on a future agenda item so we can move on this? Yeah? Yeah, okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to go into, if you're good with this, we're going to move into category B, which is dangerous buildings and property maintenance. I believe a Halloween themed presentation.
Chris, you want to go on that side? Over there, you have a mic. Just stays on.
Stays on. Okay. About a year ago, we had some significant staff transitions in the planning and permitting department, and we changed our approach to what our priorities were in hiring staff. I have with me tonight Chris Bowden. He's our lead code compliance officer. We really prioritized customer service, desire to help people, and a desire to solve problems over hiring people with a long-term history of code enforcement experience. Chris came to us with a lot of private sector housing inspection experience, with public sector Auburn housing inspection experience. Cy, our other code officer that we hired shortly after, came from Public Works, but had a real strong work history with the city and just a strong desire to help people solve problems. And more recently, Jennifer Dick, our third code officer that brought us up to full staff, really strong history of trying to help people with housing issues and housing compliance in other cities as well as with CDBG. So we really changed the approach and what our priorities were in hiring. It seems to be working. Our team helps people solve problems as recently as today. The mayor had a compliment from somebody that did work without a permit. We found out about it, but we worked with him to go through the process after the fact and correct that. He may not have been happy that he had to make the corrections, but he appreciated the approach, and that effort is paying off. We're here tonight mostly to talk about the enforcement process that we use, what we currently have for a housing code. Wanted to put that in front of you. And then also, are we being aggressive enough with enforcement? Do you want us to be more aggressive on enforcement? And a heads up about some upcoming dangerous buildings cases that'll be coming to you. Our enforcement process starts with us becoming aware of a problem, either through a complaint or something we notice on our own. We then reach out to the property owner, and we really try to see if we can get voluntary compliance without the issuance of any paperwork or notices of violation. When that doesn't work, we issue a notice of violation, or if we're agreeing to some more extended period of time, we want to document that and have a solid deadline at the end of that after working with the property owner. If we can't achieve compliance within that period, then staff is able to issue some administrative citations. First one's $105, second one's $210, third one is $420, and the fourth one is, I believe it's $840. And then every subsequent citation after that is $840. Now, those only work if people take them seriously. and we can't force somebody to pay those. The only way to force somebody to pay that afterwards is to initiate a lawsuit and then have those become part of a court order that then somebody becomes is in contempt if they don't follow through with the court order. Mostly they're effective. Usually we can achieve compliance at that point. But sometimes we achieve compliance and don't always collect the citation as well. And that's where we have to really decide, do we want to initiate a lawsuit? We've achieved compliance. Do we want to initiate a lawsuit just to collect the citation? And sometimes we do, more often we don't. But that's going through the courts to basically have a court order the same repairs that we've asked for, and then finding somebody in contempt if they don't follow through with that. The other option that we have, and one that we really wanted to give you a heads up on, April of 2021 was the last time we did a dangerous buildings hearing with the city council. The dangerous buildings statute is included in your packet, and it gives the city the option of either bringing dangerous buildings case to Superior Court or to bringing that to the council, where the council is actually the judge or decider of whether or not the building constitutes a dangerous building. The statute is pretty broad. We generally prefer to go to the council. We're usually trying to accomplish goals of the council when we're bringing an enforcement case like this. And I'll read through the standard that you will be asked whether or not the building meets as the majority of the important piece of the statute, I guess. I just want to bring for other people. The dangerous building statute is based on state law, applies statewide, and as I said, we can either bring an action in Superior Court or bring that to the council. We are intending to bring a handful of these to you as a council over the coming months, with the first of those starting in November. The standard that you're asked to apply is to adjudge a building to be a nuisance or dangerous. The municipal officers or county commissioners must find that the building is structurally unsafe, unstable, unsanitary, constitutes a fire hazard, is unsuitable or improper for the use or occupancy to which it is put, constitutes a hazard to health or safety because of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, obsolescence, or abandonment, or is otherwise dangerous to life and property. What we're finding is we have worked with a few property owners for a long period of time, and we're really at an impasse where we don't think the staff level enforcement is going to deliver the outcome that we're looking for. So we'll be bringing a few of those buildings to you over the next couple of months. Do you have any questions about that statute in particular? We would prepare detailed reports and findings to support a decision on whether or not the building constitutes a dangerous building.
Just a question about the fines. I'm thinking about that. If you can't collect them and you've got to go to court and you have to expend a lot of fees, it makes it really disincentivizes cities and towns to go after these things. So it occurred to me that if you could pass legislation to have these fines roll into property taxes, and it would have to go through the legislature. But if you could do that, then you'd have some teeth, because eventually you could take a tax foreclosure on them.
Yeah, I think, a little bit of context over 5 years, and I think it's interesting. When you have a housing market with a vacancy rate of around 5%, a healthy housing market, what you see is you do see the fact that people actually have time, effort, and so forth. They have to because they want to fill them, or they don't. They want to be absentee landlords. And the last ones we did, Eric, I remember these over the course of the years back in 2021 and before, these were just absolutely non-habitable build. I mean, it was clear cut. There was no ambiguity whatsoever. Now you get in a pretty significant housing crunch, and occupancy is 99.8%, I believe, or something obscenely high and unhealthy. People are renting these. There is no encouragement to, maintain. There's, to keep up, to maintain health and standards of these buildings, because they got people in them, and they're paying exorbitant rents. So, or they just don't care, like that one here. This is a great one. So I think this is good. I think we need to increase it as much as we can. But I also need to remember that if we're displacing people, we need to make sure there's housing for those individuals.
And I think that's a good point. Usually we have used the dangerous building statute mostly on vacant buildings. There are some that are occupied buildings, as you said, in such a tight rental market that we don't think that the property owner is willing or capable of making the improvements that are needed to make sure that they're safe, and there will be some occupied buildings considered. These are a couple of images. One of a property on Hampshire Street, and I think the other one is on 4th or Dunn Street in New Auburn.
In your opinion, I mean, a lot of these buildings are just going to have to hit the wrecking ball and come down, correct?
I think we've tried everything we can to compel the owner to repair them, and there's still major issues that make us question whether or not they'll ever be, worthwhile to reinvest in and save.
Do we have enough money in our budgeted money saved up for demolition and repurposing some of these homes?
So we have some. We did 32 Dunn Street, 32 High Street, 16 Walnut Street last year. We spent almost $150,000 or $170,000 on 3 major junkyard cleanups that is all from the same fund. We do have some funding for 1 or 2 more buildings right now in that account.
I was just going to ask if, first off, are these city-owned?
No.
If they do become city-owned and we're looking at demolition, can we first utilize them for training for firefighters or anything like that?
We certainly can. I don't think they will become city-owned, but sometimes they do. Yeah. And we're cautious about doing that. We've had training occur with holes in the roof, and then you have to pay for the tonnage of wet demo debris instead of dry demo debris. So we just have to work on the timing of that to keep the cost down.
Thank you.
If we're selling the lots, there might be developers as part of the deal. We'll do the demo as part of the sale as well.
So on one that we tax acquired, and I think you'll be looking at a couple of those tonight that the city has cleaned up that were actually tax acquired. I think that works really well. In this case, the dangerous building statute requires us to remedy the problem and then lien the property, and that process takes 18 months or more. So once you incur the expense, file the special tax, and then eventually lien the property, I mean, it kind of puts you in the driver's seat where maybe somebody will decide they don't want to try to redeem it and speed that up, but it takes some time, and we have to remedy the problem rather than pass it on to a new owner.
I will say, though, if you need extra money for demo, I believe that's an authorized expenditure with our ARPA account.
So we'll get exact accounting on what's left on that as we go through that process, but expect one building in November and then potentially a couple more in December, January.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of demo, I mean, these are 2 perfect examples of houses that would take way more money than it's worth to rehab them, that we'd be much better off demoing these and letting someone build something new there, especially this one here on the right by Webster School.
Yeah, that's one we've
Or
tried
Webster
everything we
Apartments.
can to get them to correct.
I think there's people living in that building, too.
There are.
Yeah. Okay, so you asked a question earlier about doing this more aggressiveness, I believe?
Yes, so we've had a big transition in staff. We're getting back, we're fully staffed, knock on wood, for the last month and a half, and we are going to be able to be more proactive again instead of reactive. We'll be pushing forward some of these that we haven't been able to achieve compliance to either 80K lawsuits or dangerous buildings. But also want to check in to make sure that we're doing this at the level that the council wants us to do it, and we'll be bringing those to you for those decisions. We have an older housing code. There are some complaints that we've been receiving from constituents or counselors or from constituents through counselors. Are there pieces that are not addressed in the codes that we gave you that you want to try to address with a more comprehensive property maintenance code? Those are some questions that staff has to make sure we're delivering what you want for code enforcement services.
I would think maybe the comprehensive property maintenance code is something that we can have at a further workshop, because it is a really long conversation, and it's not the first time that conversation's come in front of this council over the past 10 years. But it's worthy of more dedicated time than what we have left. I will ask the one question, the first part, and hopefully give you an answer. Is there anyone on the council right now that does not want to get aggressive with regards to enforcing this ordinance? Yeah, I think it's pretty unanimous. So, I doubt that people that have these buildings and they're doing not doing their proper maintenance on, deferred maintenance rather, I doubt they're watching this meeting. But if anyone knows them and is watching this meeting, please let them know. Fix your buildings. There's programs out there to help you fix your building, or you're going to get in trouble. And I think that's the only way to do it. We have carrot, and we have acted upon that tonight, and we're going to continue to act upon the incentive. But unless there's some teeth behind our ordinance, it's not going to matter.
So Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilman.
Just wanted to say, I was on a committee years ago, probably 15 or 20 years ago, where we tried to institute a more aggressive property maintenance code. And there was a lot of pushback from landlords, one of whom actually moved from the area because he was so mad about it. But it was a different time. We had a greater vacancy rate. It was harder for landlords to maintain their properties. Now, with the kind of rental income they're deriving from these properties, some of which shouldn't even be rented, there should be enough money there for them to be doing the maintenance that we could require in a more aggressive code.
So I don't disagree, Mayor. I think we need some allocated time to really dig into this. You'll be able to see what I'd like. Now that everybody's in agreement, then we will work on presenting that full package to you. But in the meantime, know that, when we get complaints like this, there's not much we can do in the ordinance. We've done some things if the building's vacant or the team worked at contacting the property owner is vacant, but said, if you could go ahead and clean it up, send me the bill, those kind of things. So there's some things that we are trying to work on, but when you receive complaints from constituents about this, and we're coming into a different time of year, right? So we're not going to have this as much, but just know that our hands are really tied based on the current ordinance. There's not much we can do for a complaint like that one right there.
Yeah, and I think we all need to, in this conversation, sit back and say, how much should we want to do? What complaints should we handle? And before, your neighbor would go to your neighbor and say, mow your lawn. You look like junk. You make my house look like junk. They wouldn't call up City Hall and say, Freddie's not mowing his lawn. I think vacant buildings is a little bit different. I think occupied buildings, I think just conceptually, we all want to beautify the city, but we all want to make sure that our staff isn't chasing down every spiteful, a spite complaint because they don't like, their neighbor's cat. They're going to complain about the length of their lawn. So I've heard it from both sides, but it is different times now. Okay, I think we're good. Any last parting comments? So we're all for this. We're going to go ahead, super aggressive as staff can be. Thank you. And we'll at a further, another meeting, talk about aesthetic ordinances. Okay, next.
I just got one comment. One of the things that we've done over the years is narrow streets and make more area for grass to grow between the street and the sidewalk. I think if we're going to do that, we should be talking to the people that own the buildings that we expect to cut the grass, like you just saw. And a lot of that has not happened in the past. They've made designs, they've put in these islands, and some of them are 6 feet wide, some of them are smaller. But if we expect them to take care of it, we should be talking to every homeowner or landlord to see, is that possible? Or is it going to be something that we're going to maintain for the rest of our life?
Okay, next, we have an executive session. Contract negotiations pursuant to 1 MRSA 405, Section 6E. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Councilor Staples, second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor? Opposed? None being. We'll now send an executive session. We'll rejoin everyone in the council chambers at 7 o'clock tonight. By the way, we are not live on Spectrum due to a server error. We can be watching us, and you probably are right now on YouTube TV. But if you know someone who can't get on and watch us tonight, have them go to YouTube, please. I'd like to call to order this regular city council meeting of October 17, 2022. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening, folks. We have 6 consent items on the agenda tonight. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second,
Motion for Councilor, Staples, was it?
yes.
Second by Councilor Walker.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Sure.
ask to have one, number one, just a discussion? I don't have any concerns about the appointment. There was no application in the packet, so.
Yeah, we can't, during consent items, what we'll do is we'll pull her off and put her under new business,
okay, right.
so we can.
Thank you.
Might give
Yeah.
Sue some time, because I saw that app.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it didn't, because that's a mayoral appointment. It's a confirmation of a mayoral appointment, there is no application. So if you still want to take it off, you can, and we can
I
have a
would-
further discussion.
Yeah, just because I think there should be. There was on the other one,
Okay.
the committee, the architectural committee.
Okay. We'll take that one off. So now we have 5 items on the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this time. We still have it, I'm sorry, it's still on the floor, it's still on the floor. So a removed order 136-101-72022, that'll be under new business. Now there's 5 items. So a vote by show of hands, all those in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. Next, we have the minutes of the October 3rd, 2022 regular city council meeting. Are there any corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes at this time.
So moved.
Second.
In stereo, I got Councilor Staples on a first and Councilor Milks on a second. All those in favor? Passes 7-0. We're going to move on to communications, presentations, and recognitions. First on the agenda tonight is a assessor's report. We have Karen Scammon and Joe St. Peter. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor, City Manager, members of the council. I'm Karen Scammon, Assessor for the City of Auburn. This is Joseph St. Peter, the Deputy Assessor, and we are here tonight to give you some information on the assessing department. Joe has put together a PowerPoint presentation, has a little bit of information about some of our responsibilities, and it also has information on some statistics as of 4/1/2022, such as valuation of the city, personal property valuation, some exemption information. We find it very interesting. I hope you do too. And in addition, I hope you find it useful. We will provide you all, all of you, with all of this information. You may need it to answer questions from taxpayers. You may need it for your own information to make some decisions. But either way, we hope you find it very useful. This is just our mission statement. I'm not going to read that for you. It will be in the PDF that you receive. That's our information, as you all know, because we've told you several times before. Assessors are agents of the state. We work for the municipality, but we are agents of the state, and therefore we do follow all of the laws and statutes. Title 36 mostly. Commitment data, this will show you that the mill rate did drop this year by $1.07. Certified ratio stayed the same, and our commitment date was slightly earlier than last year. And Joe's going to take over from here. I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Grab Karen's mic.
Okay, so these are our numbers for the year. We put together a packet that Karen alluded to. We're going to send you a PDF of that information. These slides are included, plus a little bit more, which we'll talk about. But these are our numbers, and we're going to start by talking about real estate and how kind of we get to these numbers. So this year, our total assessed valuation in real estate was just over $2.5 billion. Of that, $2 billion was taxable, and $458 million is exempt. So what do we assess when we're talking about real estate? So we have 9,433 parcels, and that includes vacant land, residential properties, commercial and industrial property, and utilities and other miscellaneous things. We assess all property regardless of whether or not it's exempt. It's our responsibility under law to make sure that we account for both taxable property and exempt property. So how do we do it? How do we get to those numbers? So we have some normal kind of primary functions that we follow year to year, and these consume kind of our assessing calendars. Kind of the lifeblood of what we do are the property inspections. That includes our quarterly reviews when we go around inspecting neighborhoods. We also call them the 1 and 4s. We do reassessments at request of property owners, or if we find something irregular that we need to investigate. Permit inspections are one of the primary ways that we get out and see properties, particularly with new construction or permit work that we have to inspect. And we do other kind of miscellaneous neighborhood reviews and more. We have some powerful tools that we use for aerial pictometry that is very helpful in us doing desktop reviews or confirming information that we know to be true on the ground. Another thing that we do are we process sales, and with that there comes a lot of analyses. This real estate market recently, we've had a higher volume of sales and also higher sale prices. But sales processing takes us in a lot of different directions. Not only do we do sales ratio studies as a result, we have to confirm ownership, which is very important for determining if property owners are eligible for exemption, and we have to assess property to the correct parties each year. It also informs us whether or not parcels have changed, whether or not we have to do splits or merges, or if there are any gaps in the ownership or what we call the deed chain that requires a lot of analysis. So sales and processing consumes a lot of our time, and it's very important for us to get it right. And that's another thing, parcel changes. Last year we had, as a result of our investigations, 50 parcel editing tasks. And we do, when we change a parcel boundary for whatever reason, because there was a sale or a split or something, we don't just edit, we don't just review that one parcel, we look at surrounding parcels, because when you're dealing with a tax map system, when you change one thing, it has a domino effect on other things, and we have to review those. So with every parcel task, there are often 10 other edits that need to be made. So in the end, there are hundreds of boundary line edits that we do. We also administer exemptions. This is kind of a big deal. We have over 5,300 individual real estate exemptions, totaling $458 million. We also administer special land use programs. You've probably heard of tree growth, farmland, and open space. We have 53 tree growth parcels enrolled, 47 farmland parcels, and 6 in open space. We also have the added program this year of the property tax stabilization. To date, we've taken over 1,100 applications, and the deadline is December 1st, so we expect those to keep coming. That's proving to be a cumbersome process, and I think next year is going to be even more challenging when we have, because enrollees have to apply every year, so we have to keep track of who's applied, what's new, and if they're coming in from other communities. Part of our role is public outreach and notification. We do a lot of online postings. We do mass mailings for new property owners, for value change notifications, and for other various reasons. We do public meetings. We have face-to-face contact with our constituents, a lot of phone calls and emails. So, and any data that we produce is public information that becomes part of the public record, and is, of course, available to taxpayers and other stakeholders. So assessing real estate has a lot to it. Generally, we have to test our assessments against 3 approaches to value: the market approach, or the sales comparison approach, the cost approach, and the income approach as possible. And we must follow best assessing practice in state law. And real estate property is assessed as of April 1st of every year. Some of you may have heard that we made some market adjustments in 2022. That was kind of an added thing that we did this year that really took us in a whole bunch of different directions, and we had a lot of public outreach and effort involved in this process. But real estate property value increased by almost $200 million compared to 2021. The market changes that we made to single-family properties was just over $178 million, and other increases were due to us adjusting ag land. That's added $3 million, and there was other increases that was just over $17 million because of other net growth in the city. So exemptions are something that we manage a lot. The largest category of exemption is our homestead. We have 4,341 exemptions totaling $100 million. But here's just a breakdown of all the other exemption categories. Homestead is first. Homestead is first. City-owned property is second, and then down the line. Most of these are 100% exemptions, except for the homestead, veterans, parsonages, the blind exemption. Those are generally, usually partial exemptions that we have to manage. So moving into the other kind of valuation, the other type of property that we're responsible for valuing is personal property. And I speak to a lot of people, and a lot of people are unaware that we even assess them at all. And sometimes it's a surprise to people that we are responsible for assessing personal property. And generally, these are tangible assets located at businesses that we require business owners to report. We send them out a list, or we send them out a request, and they list their personal property, and we assess it. So total, we have $323 million of personal property that's assessed. Of that, $101 million is taxable. And for taxable assets, business owners have the opportunity to get a refund on taxes paid on those through something called the Better program. And the rest of the property that we assess is called, is exempt, or through the Betty, or an exemption program offered by the state, and that's $221 million. Personal property takes some time to process, and we kind of have a calendar that we follow, although we're doing things year-round with personal property. But beginning in February through March, we do something called a business canvas, where we check for new businesses to see if any businesses have closed, whether there are new ones that are open, and we try to do the best outreach that we can. At the same time, we have forms that we use, that we update, and we post that information on the website. Come March, we're doing filing notices to businesses. We do that by traditional mail, and we also do an email mailing that we send out. I think we're one of the few municipalities in the state that does that. And we promote those tax relief programs that I talked about, the Better exemption program, or the Better refund program, and the Betty exemption program. And then in April through June, we have kind of a labor-intensive processing of files, where we process those exempt assets, the tangible taxable assets. We set aside Better applications for later processing, and then in 2022 we had 1,088 business personal property counts. And then right now, October through December, we're processing Better applications that come in, and those are always a year behind. And it's time to start over. So one of the things about personal property is that we have to do it well, or else we could be subject to penalties. So good documentation is really important if we're audited by the state. One example of that would be if we didn't properly, if we didn't sign applications for the Betty, and we didn't have good documentation of that, we could be forced to pay back money. So record keeping and diligence is a critical task. we've talked about ratios in a number of other meetings, and one thing about personal property is that it's adjusted by whatever certified ratio that we declare. So in 2022, it was 93%. Because of that, we lost $24 million in personal property value by ratio. So it's very time consuming. And here's kind of our overall valuation percentages. If you look at the pie chart, personal property was only 11% of our total value in the city. So we spend about 40% of our time on 11% of our value. So it's time consuming, but one of those things that we really have to do in order to be equitable. And real estate is 89%. This includes taxable, this chart includes both taxable and exempt value. So in real estate, we were 2.5 billion, personal property, 323 million. So our total overall valuation is $2.8 billion in the city of Auburn. I think that's a lot. This chart is our tax base mix, which shows you the percentages of tax base. And residential is by far the largest category of taxes. Some people think of this as the tax burden. That's not entirely accurate way to think about it, because it's really based on, are you assessing them according to their market value? And if you are, if it's equalized amongst the categories, then the tax burden is equal. And if you see the little table below, like residential has far and away the most, which is why it has the highest valuation percentage. We also chart our top 10 taxpayers. This list has been the same for a lot of years. There's a new addition, EVP Auburn jumped the list, and there are a few other movers on the list, but it's basically the same group of people that are here. Another thing we've talked about in other meetings are some rates, and I kind of want to spend a little time on this just to kind of explain what's driving these changes in our rate trends. For example, the Betty reimbursement rate. Because we're a large municipality and we have a lot of personal property in the city, we're eligible for something that's called enhanced Betty. The more you have, the better your reimbursement rate. So in 2022, the better reimbursement rate dropped. And the reason for that is because we ratioed and we lost some value, therefore the formula for our enhanced Betty dropped. This is one of those moving parts we talk about when we're doing our kind of our road towards commitment, that there are some unknowns and some wild cards that we're not sure of until we actually have kind of all the numbers in place. The homestead reimbursement rate increased, which is a good thing, but again, we're told that it's going to increase by statute every year, but that's never certain. We're never actually sure that that's going to be the case when it comes right down to it in any given fiscal year. So we're cautiously optimistic that it's going to go up again, but a lot of things can happen at the legislature that could change this. A positive development this year was that the mill rate dropped by $1.07. We like to see that. And our certified ratio also remained flat, which is another positive development, although there was a lot of effort going into just maintaining that ratio. As we've talked about in other meetings, the ratio could have been adjusted, but again, that would have had effect on other things that I'm talking about. What about value? What's happening there year to year? Well, according to the MVR, our valuation base has been steadily increasing with a dramatic increase this year. I'd like to point out that since, in the past 4 years and even before then, we've seen a steady rise in the total valuation base. And this includes taxable value and reimbursement of Betty and homestead and all of those things. Those contribute to what's known as the valuation base. And finally, our slide is talking about the municipal valuation return. We're going to have a packet available for you in a PDF. This is kind of the traditional analog one that we hand out every year. But the MVR will be in that packet along with these slides. and some other information such as the certificate and warrant and the resolve relating to the budget. That's all in this packet that we're going to share with you. And that kind of concludes the information that I have to share. Thank you.
Good. Is there any questions? First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. It's informative. Honestly, it's important that we continue to hear this information over and over. Is there any questions, clarifying points you'd like to ask? None being? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. This is not Okay, council communications. I have something to communicate, but I'm going to wait till the end. Any communication going down the road? Start, Councilor Staples.
Sure. I heard from a few constituents over the weekend that received their absentee ballots that they were a little confused by the ballot that we put out as a city for the charter changes. And so I was hoping if I brought this up, I might be able to convince the city manager to have some sort of information or some sort of an information packet or something put to Facebook or on the city website, just explaining what that is and why we're doing it.
We can take a look at what we can communicate. A lot of times when things go out for a ballot, especially for a charter change, it's important for the city not to try to move that vote one way or another. We'll try to be as informative as we can. I think the question did that. If for those who are listening, those that are here, those charter questions are really, those came from the school committee based off from statute changes within the hiring and separating of a superintendent. That's where the majority of that came from, and then the rest was just to align the title of the Department of Education and changing that so it's in alignment. But those were the changes, but I can work with Sue and we can talk about how best that we can navigate that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Just an update there. United New Auburn Association's meeting will be October 25th, this Tuesday night, 6 o'clock. We will be talking about mostly Halloween at that meeting. We'd like to get plenty of people to show up, so please do. Neighborhood Watch meeting will be the 27th of October, Thursday night, up at the church off from South Main Street there, the 6th Street Congregational Church. Also, the United New Auburn Association will have a bean dinner on October 29th, which is Saturday night. Hope that you can all make it, and I think we do a great job working with the church people putting that out. Also, don't forget, October 30th is Halloween night for us, which will be done in the afternoon at Anniversary Park, 1 to 3 o'clock. All the kids are welcome. We have plenty of children almost every year. We do over 400 to 500 kids that come to that. And as always, Thanksgiving, November 24th, there will be held at the Auburn Senior Community Center at Pettingill Park, 12 to 1:30. That is for people that would like to join us, they have no other place to go, and need a great dinner, and it is no cost. We ask for donations if you can do that, but you're welcome to come. Thanksgiving dinner on November 24th. Thank you.
Anything? No? Good. Okay, Mr. Manager, do you want to go, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go, then you can wrap it up. Just want to report out to the council that the retreat date for the council will be November 14th. That'll be at 5 p.m. to 8:30. Location to be determined. We'll work on that now. We just were able to get all your dates and confirm that that time. So November 14th. The election, for information for, and maybe Councilor Staples, this will tie with that if we put anything out. But we do have an election hub on our website. We encourage people to look at that. It also has locations for wards. It has the bus routes to be able to access the ward locations, the voting locations. But it also, one thing that we're pushing out is LATC, which is the Lewiston Auburn Transit Committee, did vote to ensure that the majority of our bus routes do get access to the wards, but also there'll be no cost for ridership on that date. So anyone who wants to use the bus on that day, it'll be no cost, regardless if you're going to a poll. It's just you'll be able to ride the transit for no cost on that date. Last thing is, Council, if you remember from our last retreat, much of what we talked about was being about data driven and making sure we have data. We're making sure that's providing that to you. A few things that we've been pushing out. One is the information that you're getting regarding the crime stats. You're seeing those on a regular basis. Planning just went online, so you saw planning this last week, some of their data on what we're pushing out and what they're doing. We're working on that with other departments. You're seeing the change that's taking place, even with the assessing's presentation tonight. You're seeing data consistently. How many properties are we assessing? What's that time frame? What's the workload for those different categories? Those are the things that we are gathering and collecting. You'll see more of that as we prepare the budget and present it before you. So that's it for tonight.
Will you mention the locations for voting, just?
So Sue can do that.
So wards 1 and 2 vote at the Senior Center, 48 Pettingill Park Road. 3 and 4 will vote here at Auburn Hall, and Ward 5 is at the Boys and Girls Club, 43 2nd Street in New Auburn.
Thanks, Sue.
Outstanding. Okay. I've got something to communicate too, and while I do that, I'm going to ask the city manager to hand out a packet. I believe you have them. Yeah. We're going to hand out a packet to everybody. And I've kind of briefed in some of you already on this, and this is an evolving situation, but in general, we are experiencing a housing crisis. It's a nationwide crisis. It is being felt very acutely here in Auburn, Lewiston, Androscoggin County, and throughout Maine, frankly. And it's a regional issue that needs regional solutions. As you all passed just a couple of weeks ago, a resolution to the governor asking for statewide leadership on this issue. While we wait for that statewide leadership on this issue, city staff has put together a proposal that you have in front of you right now. And this proposal is a short-term solution and a regional response to increase housing for those that are unhoused, and we do have a pretty significant increase in that. This also simultaneously increases the county's capacity and capability to better respond to similar emergencies in the future. And these temporary housing units, about 48 of them in total, will be modular, self-contained units. They can be stored and redeployed as new short-term housing as needs or disaster responses arise. The proposal and the plan that we're working out now that you have in front of you calls for an initial deployment of these emergency resources for a preliminary 6-month period with the goal of providing safe lodging for the region using rising unhoused population throughout the winter months. This program will hopefully leverage existing regional partners to effectively transition residents to more permanent housing. In a nutshell, this proposal has been created. You'll see a budget for these 48 units. 24 units. That will house 48 individuals a night, including appropriate bathroom facilities, counseling facilities, security, and so forth. We have talked with myself and City Manager Kroll, with city administrators, as well as elected officials in both Lewiston and Androscoggin County. We've met with some very, very positive responses and ideas. This is the initial phases. We have to work very closely together with our partners in Lewiston, as well as the county commission and administrators, to make all of this happen, and it will truly be a part of a regional solution to the housing crisis and to those suffering from temporary homelessness. Hopefully, this will be something, because it doesn't exist statewide, but a regional model for other counties and municipalities to bind together and use their combined resources to provide this type of assistance. Our goal is for the next 2 or 3 weeks to work with our municipal partners collaboratively in order to come up and present back to you, as well as the Lewiston City Council and the Androscoggin County Commission will all have their own unique proposals to take action on, with the goal of rolling this out by January 1 of 2023. We're really aggressive, but if you look at the types of shelters these are, that's called the pallet. They literally come in a pallet. They are easily installed. They're shipped from Washington State, Brian? I believe Washington State. They're put up, they're heated, they have electricity, and they're good to go. And again, if you think about it, a long-term asset for the county in case of fire, displacement, tornado, natural disaster, what have you, they can be utilized again for a variety of different purposes. So it has some nice durability, if you would. I wish I had a lot more information, but it would be presumptuous of myself and the city staff to do that without further consultation. But I did want to let you know that this is being worked on. And I want everybody in the city of Auburn to know, and Androscoggin County, that people, your elected officials and staff that work at each one of these three municipal organizations are actually working hard and have been to try to solve this. This right now, other than building more homes for permanent solutions, which will happen in tandem, and it already has been, will be that temporary stopgap to make sure our most vulnerable are not outside in the winter freezing. And it's something that can be turned up very quickly and very inexpensively. So are there any questions, broad questions on this? If not, you will have much more information over the course of the next couple of weeks. We are moving in the background very, very actively. I know Lewiston and Androscoggin County will be bringing this up in their meetings Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, respectively. None others? Okay. If there's any other information, please reach out to me. We can talk about it more. Okay? That's it for communication. Mr. Manager, did you want to add anything to that?
No, all set.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask
Sure.
you a question? Reading this, it looks like having these houses, if we had them tomorrow, we would fill them up, according to your information.
Well, you're looking at case studies from other municipalities as well.
Yeah.
On that one. So we think they would be filled, though we have been talking to people that are experiencing temporary homelessness. There are a significant number of individuals that might not want to be in this area or be in this. We can't be everything for everyone, but we do think that 48 individuals being housed on an overnight during the winter is a substantial start, and it's a significant increase to what we currently have. Plus, it can be up rapidly within 6 weeks, and that's a rapid a setup. If you're talking about a brick and mortar shelter, you're talking about years of construction and untold millions of dollars. This is a rapid type stopgap solution.
Well, it's a start to help this problem we've got in our neighborhoods.
It is, and hopefully we can actually execute this effectively, timely, and then this can be an example for other municipalities. And what happens is, if you look at it, you're seeing people that are experiencing homelessness drift and migrate towards the areas in which services are provided. Now, they're not staying in Somerset County. They're not staying in Aroostook. They're moving. So if we can actually kind of start, if you would, model out a regional solution at the county level in all 16 counties, we can then disperse and evenly balance out those experiencing homelessness throughout all of our counties in the entire state versus just having them congregate in three metro areas, Bangor, Lewiston, Auburn, and Portland. Okay, moving on. Open up to the first open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business which is not on tonight's agenda. Please step up to the podium, limit your comments to 3 minutes, and say your name and address.
My name is Pam Rousseau, 745 West Auburn Road. Dana, thank you very much, because I was at that August 15th meeting, and I didn't remember there were 5 things we were supposed to vote on. And so I think it's very good to get it out there. People have been asking me, and anyway. I would like to mention the watershed. You've gone from you've put out between 1 and 3 acres with no indication of how much land can be cleared and how much lawn, whether it can be fertilized or not. We talk about we're being on the tipping point. We need to keep our trees. And it also allows for bed and breakfast. I've been in some that have had 6 to 10 rooms, and there's parking and traffic, and it is not very, it doesn't make sense to me environmentally for the lake to allow bed and breakfast. I would like to see it more restrictive. Also last week, on Tuesday, I was at the planning board meeting. The city council sent to the planning board about getting rid of the income requirement for the ag zone with no safeguards to keep the land in ag zone. Without those safeguards, the land just becomes, you can build a house on it, and that's it. We need to think about PFAS. The Ag Committee had an expert in to speak on it. They are man-made chemicals known as forever chemicals. It is the sludge from wastewater, solid, semi-solid waste that was spread on areas back in the day to help fertilize gardens and farmlands. The problem is there are health risks, and I just picked a few: reduced body immunity, child development, cancers, increased cholesterol levels, etc. So most farmers get their hay from other places, not their own land. And when the hay is grown in a field that has PFAS, and this is a new study here, it's getting into the meat and the milk of that animal, and they've had to destroy whole herds, especially pigs. The half-life sometimes is longer than the animal's lifespan. Now, why am I telling you this? We need our hay, we need our ag zone. The area around Lake Park, Summer Street, West and North Auburn roads have a lot of haying. The land does not contain PFAS and can be fed to the animals, and the Ag Committee does keep track of those places, and I would have to talk more than 3 minutes. In that area, there are also horse farms, goat farms, large gardens where produce is sold. Some of those areas are right now in what the city would like to make T24B city core. The intent shouldn't be to change the ag zone income standards so that a house or houses can be built. It would be to safeguard our ag zone. With a high cost of fuel, it is even more important to encourage farming. During World War II, food was scarce. The government wanted farmers and people to work the farms. Maybe our crisis isn't war, but it is out of control inflation, global warming, and the danger of land being developed. Who's going to feed those people that get into all the housing that's going to be here in Auburn? I hate to see this as a slippery slope for more development and less opportunity for farming. And a lot of people don't think of ag, but that's syrup, wool, field crops, milk, dairy, honey, eggs, livestock, cranberry, fruits, berries, vegetables. There's a lot of that in there. And so I ask you to be very mindful.
Thank you, Mrs. Rousseau. Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak in tonight's first open session?
My name's Maureen O'Brien. I live at 42 Winter Street. I'd like to comment on the mayor's statements in the paper on Sunday. He said that older people don't want to have younger people with families moving next door to them. I'm an older person. I've lived in Auburn for 40 years. I would love to see younger people moving into my neighborhood. I've listened to many of the older people have spoken at the city council and planning board meetings, and I don't remember any of them saying they didn't want families moving into their neighborhood. I've heard them say they don't want the rezoning changes or the changes to the watershed. It's not the same thing.
Is there anybody else that'd like to speak? If not, I'll close the first open session. We're going to move on to unfinished business at this time. Ordinance 22-1003-022, amending Chapter 14, Section 14-49, exemptions from license requirements or fees of the city code. It's a second reading. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Second. I got a motion from Councilor Staples, second motion from Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Staples. Anybody in the public like to speak about this? Again, this is in reference to allowing our youth to have lemonade stands, the Morin bill. Bring it back to the council. Council, discussion, debate, none being, asked for a vote, and this is roll call vote.
Counselor Staples.
Yes.
Counselor Gary.
Yes.
Counselor Whiting.
Yes.
Counselor Hawes.
Yes.
Counselor Milks.
Yes.
Counselor Morin.
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Passes unanimously, 7-0. Next is ordinance 23-10032022, adopting the street tree sustainability ordinance. This is second reading. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Staples. Anybody in the public like to comment? None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council, second reading. Any comment, debate? Anybody not like trees? Good. Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Staples.
Yes.
Counselor Gary.
Yes.
Counselor Whiting,
Yes.
Counselor Hawes,
Yes.
Counselor Milks,
Yes.
Counselor Morin,
Yes.
Counselor Walker.
Yes.
Passing unanimously, 7-0. Next, new business, and we're going to bring forth the one consent item that was asked to be considered. At this point, I'd like to or entertain a motion to consider under new business order 136-1017222, the appointment of Tara Parity as an alternate member of the Ethics Panel with a term of expiration November 1, 2025.
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion, Counselor Walker, second from Counselor Staples on this. Let me start off. So just to remind you all of the ordinance within the charter, the mayor appoints a voting member and an alternate member that's confirmed by a majority of the city council. And that's what I've done several times over the last 5 years. We do have a vacancy right now that needs to be filled. So I went looking like I've done before, and I just want to tell you a little bit about the candidate, so you know, okay? On this one, I did not ask for an application. I do believe with regards to this specific committee compared to other committees with ethics, it is a mayor selected versus going to the appointment committee, and there needs to be some due diligence done. And sometimes I felt personally that, and I've done this historically, not to open up those individuals to potential conflict, if you would, or any debate. So after I explain kind of the resume or a little bit about this individual, and just a little bit, if you want to have a discussion about this, I would respectfully ask that someone make a motion to go into executive session concerning the sensitive nature of the appointment of this individual. And that further debate could happen there, discussion. So this individual, Tara Parity, let me pull it up, is a lifelong Auburn resident. She's raised 3 children here. She is also the assistant clinical professor at UNE in the Department of Physical Therapy. She's also the director of clinical education at the at the University of New England. I've known her for some years. I try to look for people that practice something that has high ethical standards. Jim Pross, a local attorney, being one of them. And I wanted to balance it out a little bit. And someone in the medical field, that's one of her primary responsibilities is teaching ethics. I thought would add a nice voice as an alternate member to this committee. So that was my selection process, if you would. And I'm willing to take any questions if I can't answer them, or a motion to go in executive session, or if you want debate or vote. Counselor Whiting, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I guess my only, no concern whatsoever about the candidate. I know her, she's a very intelligent woman. My only issue is process, and that's an issue I bring up quite a lot, particularly around appointments. And I know it's a mayoral appointment. I just think it would be better to have an application with all appointments, whether they're mayoral or from the city council or through the appointments committee, just as a means of communicating information about the candidates, not only to the city council, but also to the public. Now, like I said, I have no beef whatsoever. I think she's a very competent, intelligent woman. I just would like to see that, you know.
Fair enough, absolutely. I'll take that into consideration and maybe a modified application, because they're not applying, I'm actually asking.
Right.
So if anyone applies for it, or it says, Jason, I really want to do this, I absolutely, and I've done it 3 times, say no. I want to actually ask that individual. I want that individual not to want it. So if that makes sense. But I can definitely ask her, and maybe it's as simple as a resume. Okay? Curriculum vitae, if you would. So, fair enough? Okay, I'll ask for a vote at this time. It's not a roll call vote. All those in favor of the nominee, please raise your hand. Okay? Passes 7-0. Okay, new business. Second agenda item is Order 142-1017022, allocating $200,000 in ARPA funding for the Sustainable Auburn Match Program. Do I have a motion?
Motion to move.
Second.
Second by Councilor Staples. Open this up to the public for comment. Anybody in the public would like to comment about this? In brief, we've had this operation going on, or this program going on, since actually one of the very first ARPA programs. We've given approximately a little over 50, about 65% of the money out, up to $1,000 directly to individuals as a match to their efficiency main rebate. Not income restricted at all. You get an efficiency main rebate on a domestic hot water heater, installation, what have you. It's on Efficiency Main's website. Bring in your bill, your reimbursement check, and we'll match it up to $1,000. Now, increasing 200,000, I will say this, it's important now, especially as Efficiency Maine has rolled out a new DIY program. This DIY program will give anybody who does do-it-yourself energy upgrades, and that is clear coating your windows, caulking around your doors, up to $100 instant rebate, okay? So without an income specification. I think it would be great if someone could go and spend $200 to weatherize their home this winter in Auburn, knowing that they're going to get $100 from Efficiency Maine and $100 from the City of Auburn's program.
Is that small business as well?
I have to look at the details, and I'll ask Glenn. I believe it's only residences. It's only, that DIY program is for residences. And the sustainability program, I'm sorry, overall, is not for a business, though it does apply to commercial apartment buildings with some certain specifications. Any other questions, debate on this? None being, asked for a vote. All those in favor? Oh, yes, all those in favor. Opposed? None being, passes 7-0. Second open session of the night. If there's anybody in the public that'd like to speak.
Point of order.
One more.
Whoa, where?
Number 3.
Two and three.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I skipped the page, guys. I apologize. Next is Order 143-101-72022, authorizing the marketing of city-owned property located at 1865 Hotel Road. It's parcel ID 187-005. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion, Councilor Staples, second from Councilor Milks. Open this up to the public for comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this issue? None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council, any debate? Comment? Nothing? None? Okay, I'll ask for a vote. Is this a roll call vote? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Passes 6-1. Next is Order 144-101-72022, authorizing the marketing of city-owned property located at 145 Eastman Lane, parcel ID 079-004. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Staples, second from Councilor Walker. I'll open this up to the public for comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to comment? None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council, debate? None. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Passes 6-1. Now I'll open this up to the last open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business which is not on tonight's agenda. You please step up to the podium, give us your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Nobody in the public like to speak? Very good. I'll close the open session. We're going to go on to reports. Start off with the mayor's report. School committee meeting this Wednesday, starting at 6 o'clock. So we're starting to get into budget season, goal setting, and so forth. I did try to get our goal from our resolution earlier this year. Included in the school goals, it was tabled till December to further study this situation, which is a positive move, and that is further happening. Councilor Moore and myself will be on further curriculum meetings discussing dual enrollment and college credits being earned at our high school. So it is moving forward. It's just taking a little longer than we thought. That's it for my reports. We'll go to the city council. Any city council reports starting off to my left?
Sure. Last Thursday we had an LATC meeting. City Manager Kroll mentioned that we have free bus trips on election day. So if you're gonna go vote on election day and you want to use the bus, it's free to ride. And if you're not gonna vote and you still want to use the bus, it's still free to ride. Election day. There's also lots of committee meetings this week. So not that I'm on these, but there's a conservation committee meeting tomorrow night, and on Wednesday there's a complete streets meeting. We also have a presentation on Wednesday by Eric, I believe, for the T42B zoning.
We're good, thank you. Councilor Walker?
Thank you. I just want to bring up the potato giveaway that the City of Auburn, Bob Bells, I'm sorry, not Bob, anyway, it's a Bell family with the potato farm and the Age Friendly have joined together, and we are trying to give potatoes away at 5-pound bags to senior citizens that need the help. So this is open to all our senior citizens, mostly the city of Auburn. It's a program that started here, so we'll try to take care of all of our people that we can. So if you need a 5-pound bag of potatoes, I would suggest you come to Pettingill Park, the Senior Community Center, on Wednesdays, and you can pick up a 5-pound bag of potatoes. They're all white potatoes, so that's the best we can do. We will give out at least 15 ton of potatoes this year. So come and get them, and there'll be no cost, and we don't expect any cost to be given you away there. We have taken care of all of the costs and everything. If you can call down at the Recreation Department, that would be better. We would know you're coming, but again, come on Wednesdays, please. I will be there most of the time to help you if you need help to get them to your car. So thank you, and hope you use the potatoes.
Counselor?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Counselors?
The water and sewer departments have our regular meetings this week, 4 o'clock sewer at the Lewiston Auburn Water Department. Water and Sewer Department is both at 4 o'clock, Tuesday and Wednesday. Water's Wednesday.
Auburn Nordic Ski Association has its work Saturday from 8 to noon on, I think it's October 29th. I don't have the details, but it usually involves bringing loppers, clippers, saws, small hand saws, just keeping those trails nice and trim so that you don't get whacked with branches when you're skiing through. And so if you're not a member, you're still welcome to come and work.
I think one of those toolbox trailers actually might
Yeah,
come in
that would
handy for
help.
something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this as well.
yeah.
Trail clearing and so
Yeah.
forth. It's movable. Very good, Counselor. Nothing?
Nothing at
Mr.
this
Manager?
time.
All set.
All set. Okay. Oh, we have a finance report. Ms. Eastman, good to see you. September.
Everything looks good. The main reason for the revenue to be lower than last year was because of the homestead exemption. We hadn't received it at the end of September.
I meant to pass that out earlier.
Other than that, we're ahead of last year on most of the other revenues. And the expenditure side is pretty even with last year. Actually, it's less, but most of that's just timing. Timing of transfers to the TIF and things like that I haven't had a chance to do because I've been working on year end, so I'll try to get to those this month. If anybody has questions, I'm glad to try to answer them for you.
Are there any questions at this time? None being? Okay, very good. I will entertain a motion to accept and place on file the September 2022 final monthly finance report.
So moved.
Second.
Counselor Moore, and second from Counselor Whiting. All those in favor? It's approved 7-0. At this point, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Counselor Milk, second from Counselor Walker. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, don't say anything. We're now adjourned. Have a great night, folks. 7:58.
Just makes up names as it goes along.
Jim? Thank you. We're not live. Hey, Leroy, this is great.